Hello, Wait, wait, what are you? Hello, dumb Doomblers, and welcome to the entire lore of Doom, explained perfectly by an absolute expert. And you might ask, how complicated could the lore of Doom really be? Great question. This is why I love you. The answer is extremely. Thanks to time travel, weird space-time stuff, and multiple dimensions, the lore kills 57 people every year. So to avoid any more casualties, I will explain it as it really happened. We begin at the first game. No, hold on. Right, we begin at the beginning of time and space, where the first crybaby creates Jacquard, the first realm, and then creates humans 1.0. Don't worry about the 1.0 for now. Then the crybaby named Davoth watched over them as they developed into an extremely advanced civilization. But there was one tiny little thing that bothered him, and I quote, just a bit. That being that once they got old, they died happy and surrounded by the ones they love. So to fix this, he created the second realm, Ordak, so that he could offload the problem on someone else. Something important to mention is that both Jacquard and Ordak exist outside of time, which surely won't lead to any extremely confusing buffoonery. But back to Ordak, the people that Davoth created to pay minimum wage for scientific work are the Makers, which are a multi-leveled hive mind, meaning that the con maker makes all the decisions, then the amount of freedom while doing it depends on the level. So the Makers get to work, doing the hard part for Davoth, who spends his time creating other realities, and setting up a police state dictatorship so that he can force all of Jacquard to work on trying to fix the mortality. That was probably no big deal for them. Eventually, the Makers found a way to prolong life. But they really didn't think that it was a good idea to give it to Davoth, since he became kinda stinky and also probably insane. So to deal with him, the Makers stuffed Jacquard in the closet and then locked the doors, as any responsible adult does with their problems. As you can imagine, Davoth took this extremely well. And by that, I mean he got so mad he transformed himself into the Dark Lord and turned Jacquard into hell, corrupting everyone who didn't live inside Emora. And then he started banging on the closet trying to break out, and this caused demons to invade a lot of realms, where they discovered a new energy source. Apparently, if you torture someone's soul, you get a lot of power. The Makers then decided to be responsible and attacked Davoth with the plan of using their new ball tech to transform Davoth into a ball, which is a completely normal sentence, I don't know what you mean. And so, after a lot of fighting, they did it. A guy called the Father managed to turn Davoth into a ball. By doing so, he also became a god that doesn't have any good depiction. So the Father's very close friend, Summery Maker, who witnessed this, begged him to break the sphere to eliminate the Dark Lord. But the Father had a better idea. He constructed a new closet, safer than ever, then created a seal forbidding any demon to enter Ordak and any Maker to enter Hell, so that the Makers would have an excuse to not join any war or attack against Hell ever again. And then the Father helped the Makers achieve immortality, kinda. Basically, at the end of their lifespan, they would voluntarily die and be resurrected using the power of the Father, who was also essential to create a new Con Maker, who was created every 10,000 years. At the same time, the Father continued to create new dimensions and gods to govern those dimensions. However, Davoth, even in ball form, still had access to his Twitter account, which he used to make call-out posts and corrupt the gods of these realms. Eventually, the Father got sick and tired of dealing with the corrupted gods, so he asked his his close friend, to turn him into a ball. A perfectly normal and logical request. And after, in ball form, he was put in a sanctum in Ordak so that his power could continue the reincarnation process and the creation of a Khan. After this, the Makers continued to help sentient races across the multiverse, the only important one being Humans 2.0, which before the Khan Makers worshipped magic dragons. Oh yeah, by the way, magic is real, and with the help of the Makers, the Argenta became a powerful interplanetary civilization. And now for something completely different. We have finally arrived at the point where it kinda makes sense to talk about the original games. Yeah, all that was context for later mostly, because in Doom 1? Doom? I'm gonna say Doom. The story begins in a completely different reality or different time, Or both. I'm not 100% sure. In a nondescript future time period, a Marine is unhappy with his boss. So he was transferred to guard duty on Mars, and his boss was transferred to a casket. Mars was colonized by the UAC, which stands for Union Aerospace Corporation, a name that echoes throughout the multiverse, somehow. And they have been working on teleportation technology on Deimos and Phobos. They put an apple on one teleporter, and on the other appears a fruit of hell, which is perfectly normal and not suspicious at all, until demons attack! And the Phobos base sends a distress signal that the Marines squad goes to check on, after having put the Marine's gun on a high place where he can't reach it. Eventually, he gets his gun and finds out he's the last one alive. Huh. This page just says violence. Then the Marine goes to Hell, where apparently Deimos has been moved to, and after more violence and killing the mastermind behind this attack, a big brain on legs, the guy, I know that he isn't the Slayer yet technically, but I'm just gonna call him the Slayer anyways. It's definitely better than Doom Guy or Doom Marine. Anyways, the Slayer is sent back to Earth where there's another demonic invasion, but more importantly, they killed his bunny! And his family or whatever. So, violence, until he reaches the icon of sin, take notes, it will show up on the test, and after killing it, humanity is saved once and for all. And then it happens again, but sure. Okay, 4th time's the charm. 5th? Okay, 6th is actually the charm, because this time the Slayer stays in Hell, so next time he doesn't even need to travel. And somehow, during the constant battles he faced in Hell, he traveled through time or through dimensions, or probably both at the same time. Back in Ordak, the father got bored of being a sphere in Ordak, and without considering at all the consequences of his actions, asked Sam to get him out of there and put him next to Davoth, where he could fail to stop or hinder him even better. The makers took this great. They only lost immortality and a way to create a leader, and not being able to create a new Khan meant that the current one had to last for way more than the expiration date. This made her easy to corrupt by Davoth, who tricked her into making the divinity machine to avoid a chosen one. Clearly, her age was getting to her because this is the worst lie I have ever heard, and I have heard people say Payday 3 is good. Anyway, the divinity machine was used as a ceremonial trial by the Argenta, killing a lot of them. And then, they found the Doom Marine. He looked similar to the Argenta, but he was human 3.0 and spoke in marketing terms. And after winning a battle royale, he was offered to join the Argentan army. But not before the Khan Maker questioned him about the demons he spoke of, because somehow, either by accident or on purpose, the Makers had forgotten about the whole thing. Fortunately, the demons attacked. Well, unfortunately for the Argenta, but fortunately for the Makers. This started the Unholy Wars, which is probably when Doom the Dark Ages takes place. After winning some initial battles, the Makers pushed for the Argenta to invade Hell, since they remembered the seal, giving them the perfect excuse as to why they couldn't do it themselves. During these expeditions, the Slayer became part of the Sentinel Knights, which were the elite soldiers of Argenta. During the expeditions, 3 high priests investigated the demons for the Khan Maker. They then figured out that they were powered by the essence of tortured souls, which when combined with Wraith essence makes Argent energy, which is exactly what the Khan Maker needed to keep the Makers and more importantly herself alive. So her and the 3 priests concocted a dastardly plan. They would make a deal with our Lord of Hell. No, too sexy. Perfect. The deal was that they would build a factory for Argent energy if the Makers kept feeding them souls. So with help from Argenta volunteers, they built Necra. I'm pretty sure that's the Tower of Babel. That's a copyright lawsuit waiting to happen. Either way, the war continued until an extremely powerful titan called the Dreadnought just so happened to appear near a city filled with innocent civilians. It seemed unstoppable until Sam brought the soon-to-be Slayer into the divinity machine, and after flipping a single switch, the machine empowered the Slayer with the essence of Davoth, who was masterminding the scheme, clearly either too stupid to see that the Slayer would also definitely kill him for sure, or too petty to care because he would also definitely destroy the Makers. But for now, with this new power, the Slayer beat the Dreadnought, leaving his blade in to keep the Titan paralyzed. The Khan Maker was slightly crossed that Sam had created the chosen one who would kill her and destroy their entire civilization. Unfortunately for her, Sam had already fled to Mexico to start a new life with his husband. Well, not really Mexico, the closest thing to hell in all the universe. New York. Oh, you're waiting for me to say it was a joke? Nope, the father had decided that he was done being useless next to Davoth, so he asked Sam to take his consciousness from the ball and go to Earth to fail to avoid the mistakes of the other timeline. Meanwhile, back with the Slayer, during one of the expeditions into Hell, they came across Necroval and discovered the Khan Maker's secret. It must have been hard to figure out that the Makers were involved. They're too smart to leave any obvious clues lying around. This shocking news started a civil war. The Night Sentinels, the Slayer, and the people who thought endless torture was bad actually, versus the ones who didn't really care, the Makers, and the Hell Priests. The Hell Priests, however, somehow tricked the Night Sentinels into thinking that they were totally neutral and just had a bad rash. They then tricked Commander Valen into a deal where he would betray the Night Sentinels, but get his son back. The Night Sentinels were brought to a portal that was totally gonna take them straight to Necroval. Instead, they were scattered all across Hell alone, so pretty much all of them died. And Valen's son? Hey, at least he kept one thing, his heart. The Slayer continued to completely destroy Hell, so the Hell Priests came up with a plan. They lured him into the catacombs, covered them in EPDP magic, and collapsed them on him. The EP magic projected into his mind something so boring it instantly knocked him unconscious. And then they sealed him in a box and put it in a closet, thus fixing the problem permanently. Meanwhile, Sam on Earth had taken on a human form, then got brain cancer, and took on a robot form. Other than turning himself into a robot, he created the UAC with a name that was definitely unique, and invented so many things you would think more people would be suspicious. One of his inventions was an amazing AI, that turns out was just a father after severe head trauma. Sam also colonized Mars, and then decided that actually they didn't want to be safe and make sure that the other timeline's events don't repeat themselves, so he started to use Argent energy and prodded around in Hell. Since in subsection 5.12 of the seal, it clearly states, if you turn yourself into a human 4.0, then into a robot, it's fine, do whatever, I don't care, dude. In Hell, he found the coffin where the Hell Priests held the Slayer, and decided to take it to Mars because, and I quote, just in case my most trusted friend gets corrupted and I don't notice and she starts a demon invasion, it could be useful. And then that exact thing happens, and we finally exited the lower tunnel. Now the events of Doom 2016 unfold, which, to summarize, violence, getting a crucible, violence, the crucible gets stolen by Sam and the Slayer sent to Hell. Then the exact thing that the father and Sam were there to stop happens, and Earth gets invaded by demons. But this time, instead of admitting he sucks at everything and should stop, Sam comes back with the crucible and says, and I quote, "Nah, I'd win," and then gets beaten to near death. Not like by me, by a demon or something. Then the Slayer arrives with a spaceship that he got from a pawn shop in Hell and starts cleaning up the mess by first killing the Hell Priests. Though the Khan Maker isn't exactly happy about this, so she tries to protect the final Hell Priest by putting him on Sentinel Prime, which could only be accessed with the ruins on Mars, which I forgot to talk about. They are Argentian ruins that, judging by their depth, are at least hundreds of thousands of years old. The Slayer then ruins a holiday and gets to Sentinel Prime, where he kills the last Hell Priest, who tried the genius strategy of saying "nuh-uh" to the bullets. It didn't work. The Khan Maker is even more slightly irritated now and stops paying the electricity bills. But thanks to the Crucible, the Slayer manages to steal the electricity from his neighbor. The Khan Maker now intends on using the Icon of Sin to destroy Earth. So the Slayer, after recovering his Crucible and destroying Necroval, which apparently nobody asked him to do before because he just does it no problem, goes to Urdak, where the Slayer uses a really cool knife Valen gave him to stab the Icon of Sin's heart, thus freeing Valen's son's soul, but making the Icon of Sin go rampant and breaking the Holy Seal. The Khan Maker is actually very calm and talks out her problems with the Slayer by trying to kill him, which ends predictably. Then one quick stab later and the Icon of Sin goes down. What follows are the DLCs. In the first one, the Slayer restores Sam's original body and destroys the life sphere of the father, which Sam wanted so he could be reincarnated. Instead, the Slayer picks up Davoth's life sphere to do what everyone else was too stupid or weak to do. And then after a quick chat with Sam, Davoth is revived in the Chamber of Forgotten Lore. And he looks just like the Slayer for reasons that are still unclear but definitely cause for a lawsuit. He then leaves to be in the other DLC. The Slayer now needs to find a way to Emora, the city that has been doing nothing for the entirety of the plot. So on his way to get a battery to power the gate to take him there, he does movie reference number 1 and starts an army all at once. Then he arrives at... oh... I forgot to explain that. He arrives nowhere and picks up a figment of his imagination that he takes to the Gate of Devum that was for some reason on Earth. Once powered, he uses it to travel to Emora, where Davoth is seen being a total coward and using a giant mech suit instead of regular armor. I guess he never grew out of being a crybaby, huh? Then movie reference number 2 happens, a lot of violence and the goodbye from the best character later. It's time for the final boss, who tries to lecture the Slayer about if you think about it, he's the victim here, and that he should learn to see both sides. Then a really powerful no kills him. But Rutro, the Slayer, is also powered by Davoth, so that makes him very sleepy, so he's put inside the sarcophagus to be reawakened for the next game that isn't a prequel. And that's pretty much it. How much did I miss? A lot. How much of that is important? Now if you excuse me, I have to file some lawsuits for monetary gains. Ah, it feels good to scam the justice system. Anyway, I give this lore, I guess, a time travel and multiverse out of 10. Now like, subscribe, and start a cult devoted to making people subscribe to me.